Welcome to Talkin Science. Matt Miller with you in Studio 4. It's Tuesday, February 16, 2021. Coming up today, NASA announcements lead the show. Falcon Heavy is set to take the first pieces of the Gateway Station to lunar orbit. Europa Clipper to set sail for Jupiter's moon in 2024. And a new planetoid discovery is going to redefine the solar system again.
On Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. With the latest science and space news, this is Talkin Science with Dr. Brad Tucker and Matt Miller.
And Dr. Brad is with me once again, as he is every Tuesday for Talkin Science. Brad, good to see you again, my friend.
How's it going?
Really good, really good. What a week in Martian orbit. What a week in science and space news. Plenty to talk about today.
Yeah, look, Mars is the place to be, but it's not the only place in outer space.
Yeah, some pretty cool headlines coming up. Just loading up my notes there, and we're going to get straight into it. There's plenty to talk about. So, of course, we can find you on social media. That's what I had to do. I knew there was something I had to do. You're on social media. Dr. Brad Tucker on Facebook and at btucker22 on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Miramat86 and, of course, Trekzone all over social media. Brad, one thing that I find really interesting looking at my YouTube stats is that about 80% of our viewers are not subscribed to the channel. So we really need them to hit that red subscribe button and ring the notification bell as well so that they never miss an episode of Talkin Science or any other show that we do.
Yeah, no, it's lots. Space never stops.
Exactly. I thought I'd spring that on you and see what you might come up with. Let's dive into the show. And Brad, the headlines all about Mars, as we were talking about. First up, the United Arab Emirates on their first go got Hope into orbit.
That's right. Got it in successfully, which is always what you want. And they've already sent back the first images, so they're already sending back the images from it. Now, the images aren't anything, mind blowing in terms of revealing something new here. It's mind blowing because it works. It's one thing to get there. It's also one thing for everything to turn on and operate, and that's what they were really checking to make sure the whole process works. So they are good to go, which is great.
And Tianwen-1, China's mission has made it. They've got an orbiter and a lander.
Yeah, so the orbiter, which also has the lander/rover, has successfully again made it to Mars and entered into orbit. Now, China's first attempt a few years ago didn't enter orbit, so they obviously had some hurdles to clear. Unlike the UAE, it was like, I'll just do it on the first time. And now the key part is having that orbiter work for a few months and then preparing for their landing just shy of, I think, about 3 months from now.
And we're fast approaching to Mars 2020, as it was originally called, the Perseverance mission arriving at the Red Planet.
Yeah, a really exciting mission ahead that, again, hopefully should get there at some point. Hopefully it not only just gets there on Friday, right before 6 or 7 a.m. or 7 or 8 a.m. rather, Australian time, but that it obviously lands right away. And that's what obviously Perseverance is trying to do, is get that landing down right away and at the same time operate. So we won't know for about 20 minutes or so, I think, until after the landing scheduled, whether it was successful or not, and we probably won't get back first images or data for a few days after that, but at least it should hopefully make it, fingers crossed.
And we will have live coverage kicking off at 6 a.m. on Friday for that one. Of course, people watching in the future can find that. I'm going to put it in the card that we show on the top right there and in the video description as well. And Brad, into our stories of the week now, and a couple of NASA announcements. First up, they've given SpaceX the green light for Falcon Heavy to take the first parts of the Gateway Station to the moon.
Yeah, so there's actually a lot to unfold here, because the Gateway has always been part of the Artemis mission. This is always part of having essentially an outpost at the moon that is easy to maneuver, so to speak, to be able to be used for astronauts going down to the surface and back. and also as a stopover and as refueling hub, essentially. Now, the Gateway was always supposed to be launched on the Space Launch Systems, but this kind of is an interesting sign to show that the SLS is running so far behind, and maybe a bit of weariness in how it's progressing, that they finally had to go around and plan, because they can't just wait indefinitely for the Falcon 9 Heavy to take it up into space, not the Space Launch System.
And it is interesting. It's, we've talked about this over the last couple of years of Talking Science, moving into commercial space flight and not just relying on NASA, not relying on the SLS, really farming it out. And the mother of all invention, beyond a need, is money as well. And the brilliant thing with commercial ventures is that you fight to be the cheapest to win the contract. So it really brings down that cost. Having said that, though, it's still going to cost NASA about $331 million to put these first parts up into space.
Yeah, look, it's not cheap, but to put this in the scale, the space station costs $150 billion. So they still have some wiggle room before they're the most expensive thing built in space. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but and again, here it does have to move forward. They want to move forward. And I think it's a sign of what is going to happen in the future. If the Space Launch System is not used the way it's envisioned, then that's immediately going to change the way the Orion capsule is going to be used in the future as well. And again, the Orion capsule is supposed to go on top of this SLS to go into space. So how is that going to change it? And there's two factors here, both how fast private space companies are moving and successfully moving, but then at the same time, how slow some of these things are becoming at NASA, and whether they really should just focus on certain aspects, like building the Gateway. That is a huge task unto itself. To build a space station around the moon is not an easy thing, and they're doing it quite well. And that's another sign here, is that is progressing amazingly well. They don't want to hold that behind.
And they're aiming for a launch no earlier than May 2024. So we'll be into the 6th or 7th season of Talkin' Science by that stage. And we'll probably be at Cape Canaveral for the launch, possibly.
Maybe, yeah. But it's a sort of thing where, this was really supposed to go up maybe 2021. They were looking at then maybe 2022 as part of Artemis 1 or Artemis 2. This is now, again, slipping behind. They really want it up before Artemis 3 being where they actually land that first human on the moon, which they're still working towards that timeline of 2024, which is why it kind of has to be around that time. So you can see the kind of the time crunch they're under here with all the other things that are reliant on it. And it itself is reliant on a rocket that is, again, falling behind. The Orion capsule has been ready or nearly ready for quite a while. We talked about kind of some of its final testing last year, and yet the rocket is still waiting for its first test launch even. So we'll see how it all unfolds. It's good to see the Gateway still progressing. I think it's a really exciting thing that we will have in the future. It's great that these dates are being set, but it's definitely a bit of a change of plan.
And just lastly, these the pair of modules that are going to be launched by Falcon Heavy are the power and propulsion element and the habitation and logistics outpost to create, as you said, this one-stop shop almost in lunar orbit for astronauts on their way to the surface. Gives them a place to store stuff and also get to on the way down without having to necessarily do everything all in the one mission.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It really makes it just a lot easier to deal with the moon. And it can house, the goal is to be able to house 4 astronauts for up to 3 months. So you're talking about quite prolonged stays at this space station at the Gateway. So it's going to definitely be an interesting one to see develop. And again, exciting for the future of the moon and how it's used.
All right, Brad, next up, Europa Clipper. Now, I hadn't heard about this mission, but it is very cool. They're looking about, they're not looking, they are going to go to one of Jupiter's moons and have a look around and see exactly what's going on beneath that crust.
Yeah, look, this is one of my favorite missions. And a lot of people have heard about this. for quite a while, and it's good to see that it is finally coming to fruition. And so Europa is, as you said, one of the largest moons of Jupiter. So there's Jupiter has 79 moons. 4 of these are the Galilean moons, its largest ones. And Europa has always been an exciting place because it is a water-rich moon. It is rich in water underneath an ice sheet. And that obviously means it is an exciting place to look for life. And that's exactly what Europa Clipper is supposed to do, is to go look for life forms on Jupiter's moon.
Well, we're already planning a couple of big episodes for our 6th or 7th season of Talkin' Science, because this one's going to be launching October 2024, a couple of months after the Gateway launch. And again, they were looking at the SLS to launch this, and that's now off the table. They're looking at a commercial venture.
That's exactly right. It is that they realized they couldn't, again, just delay this, because you have to start designing it and wrapping it up. And the Europa Clipper is making great success in its design and building stage now. And in 2024 is only 3 years away. That's not really far, given they have to finish building it, do the testing, getting it ready for the rocket, all those little things. That takes time. You can't just turn it overnight. So again, this is a big sign for the Space Launch System, but B, it is great to see this is coming to the final thing. Europa and some of the moons of Saturn, like Titan and Enceladus, are probably some of the most exciting places, at least in our solar system, to look for life. I know there's all this talk about Perseverance and Mars, but these are places where we think life has a strong possibility of existing right now, given there's so much water there. In fact, Europa has more water than Earth. So they want to get there, they want to look, and it's exciting to see that take the next step to becoming a real mission.
Europa is a real fascination for, as you say, for a lot of reasons. It's probably got a rocky core surrounded by about 80 kilometers of liquid water. And while it's about the size of Earth's moon, predictions are that it's got twice as much liquid water as Earth. There's some scale going on there.
There really is. So it is bigger than our moon. And when you think about water on Earth, yes, we have a lot of surface area in water, but water isn't that deep on Earth. It doesn't go to the core. And this is the difference. As you're saying, the water goes quite deep, at least we think, on Europa. And we've seen signs of this. It's essentially a giant ice sheet, and we've seen cracks in that ice and the water vapor coming out. And so we think there is a ton of water there, and water seems to be the key for life. And yes, there's a lot of points to say that water or life could exist without water, which is very true. But we have to start looking somewhere, and we at least know one experiment, i.e. Earth, where life has existed based around water. So this just makes a great logical choice of where to go to next. So look, we're still a ways off from getting the data. It's going to take 6 years alone to get there. So it's not going to land until 2030. It takes 6 years to get to Jupiter. So, it's not a decade until really we're going to start getting data back from it. But it's exciting to start thinking that we're going to be seeing what's going on this ocean moon, rather.
Yeah, by the middle of next decade, it really doesn't sound that far away to be learning stuff about these outer planets and their moons out there in the solar system. And another thing, probably in that time, in that decade and a half until we start analyzing all those results, we're probably going to have taught kids 4 different versions of what the solar system consists of, which is my segue into our last story of the week. I'm still dirty about Pluto. Now we've got another planetoid far, far out. I love the name of this one.
Well, they had to name it Far, Far Out because they had far out, and this was further out than far out. They backed themselves into a corner there. And so it is. Look, this isn't going to be the official name yet. It is the working name, much like Far Out and the Goblin, all discovered by the same people. The Goblin was discovered on Halloween. But this is now the furthest object in our solar system at 132 AU. So 1 astronomical unit is the distance the Earth is from the sun. So the Earth is 150 million kilometers away from the sun. This is 132 times that. So you're talking about something that is tens of billions of kilometers away from the sun.
And then not only that, it swings past Neptune on the way through as well.
It does. It's a very weird eccentric orbit. A lot of these dwarf planets or trans-Newtonian objects, as they're called, TNOs, have these egg-shaped orbits. Part of the reason Pluto was kicked out of the Planet Club, actually, they're not stable, controlled orbits. So they have very elongated orbits, but at their apex, their furthest point in their orbit, their aphelion, they are far away from the sun. And again, if we just think in practical terms, a year here is 365 days. On Pluto, it's about 230 years. This is 3.5 times that. You're talking about a year is 900 or so years on this object. It is really far away.
And one thing I remember from my astronomy classes as a kid was that there was always this belief that there was something past Neptune that caused crazy orbits and crazy things to happen. And at a time, it was considered one really large planet. I guess now it seems to be a whole heap of these planetoids funking around the outer solar system.
Well, this kind of goes a bit back and forth, yeah, because there was then the evolution that, all right, well, there's more dwarf planets, and then the idea of Planet 9 came around a few years ago, because one of the issues that we do see is there's a bunch of these dwarf planets, but they're kind of clumped on one side of the solar system with these weirdly weird egg-shaped eccentric orbits. So what's kind of on the other side of the solar system? Is it more of these small things, or is it a large thing? And this is exactly why people are trying to search these outer solar system objects. What is in our solar system? What is all of it? Is there a bigger object out there? Or there's probably just more likely a bunch of these smaller things. And then obviously, how do they get there? What does it tell us about the formation of the solar system? There's lots of interesting questions by trying to find these trans-Newtonian objects, these dwarf planets or plutoids really far away. And the further you go, you kind of get a boundary of where our solar system goes to.
It just kind of keeps getting redefined, doesn't it? It keeps getting larger and larger, the solar system.
It really does. We just keep putting that bounds further away until the point where at some point we'll know an end, or at some point we just say, we've done as good as a job as we could, but we don't know exactly where the boundary of our solar system is, gravitational at least.
Fantastic, Brad. Well, it is fun to talk science with you each and every week. So much happening. As you say, science never sleeps. Space never sleeps as well. So much happening. Looking forward to Perseverance's landing on Friday, or if you're watching us in the future, how great was Perseverance's landing? Looking forward to catching up with you again on Tuesday. We're going to have a full wrap-up of Perseverance, as well as more stories of the week. So we'll catch you again then, Brad.
Sounds good.